Imagine this. Two countries, Iran and Syria, suddenly agreed to jointly bomb Tel Aviv. Not one or two missiles, but hundreds, as if unleashing all their pent-up rage. As a result, a quarter of Tel Aviv was reduced to rubble. But wait, this is just the beginning. Who's behind this, and why is the world pretending not to see? Stay until the end. This story is crazier than you think. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to our channel, where we share stories full of inspiration and examples. But before we start, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to write kind words in the comments, so we may receive intercession on the Day of Judgment. Let's dive into the story. Have you ever felt the air getting heavy, but not because of the weather? That was the atmosphere in the Middle East during those weeks. Not hot from the desert, but because the relationships between countries were like a sweaty, tangled ball of yarn thrown into a fan, doubly messy. On one side, Iran, a country constantly being provoked. Economic sanctions, sabotage of scientists, and sometimes their satellites get suspicious looks from neighbors. On the other side, Syria, a country bleeding for years in its internal conflict. But Syria is like a person who, even when wounded, can still join a fight. And on the western edge is Israel, especially Tel Aviv, a city that's become a symbol of modernity and technology, and, unfortunately, also a center of politics that often irritates its neighbors. In short, Iran and Syria were fed up, not physically, but mentally. You know how it feels when you're constantly cornered, suspected, made the common enemy. Though sometimes they just want to live in peace, drink tea, relax. Maybe scroll through TikTok if they could. But the world isn't that simple. One night, as the sky over the Syrian border darkened slightly, Iran and Syria made a deal. Brother, we need to send a message, but not with words, with missiles. So brother, this wasn't just an attack. It wasn't like kids throwing stones by the roadside. It was meticulously planned, coordinated, terrifying, like a deadly duet. One aims, the other finds a gap. Iran launched missiles from the east, Syria from the north. Picture Tel Aviv as a person being hit from both sides. They strike from the right, they strike from the left, and in the middle, even more so. Israel's radars lit up instantly, air defense systems kicked into gear, but it turns out not everything could be intercepted. A few missiles broke through, and those missiles weren't ordinary. They were missiles that, as teenagers might say, carried old grudges. The first explosion made hearts skip a beat. Tel Aviv's residents panicked immediately. Sirens wailed. The sounds of explosions didn't come from one spot but spread everywhere. People who usually jogged on the beach in the morning were lying on their kitchen floors that night, heads down. High-rise buildings, usually aglow with lights, went completely dark. Many collapsed, many burned. And the most painful part, one of Tel Aviv's tech hubs, said to be the pride of Israeli startups, exploded too. Maybe the servers were still running, but the building was reduced to ash. The next morning, Tel Aviv wasn't the same Tel Aviv. You know what it's like? Waking up to find half your city gone. According to reports we consider reliable, because they went viral on social media, about 25% of Tel Aviv was completely destroyed. Insane. A quarter. Not just the city's edges, but homes, small hospitals, ammunition depots, and, well, a lot of other things we don't want to mention. The bitterest irony, the luxurious downtown buildings, usually symbols of modern safety, were the first to crumble, while a small corner shop still stood, though its roof was punctured. Many civilians were evacuated, many didn't make it. Sometimes I wonder why, in a world said to be so modern, war is still a solution. Maybe because war is now like a business. There are missile makers, drone sellers, secret sponsors. Or because we're not mature enough to sit together and say, brother, aren't you tired of always being angry? But the most honest answer seems to be that revenge is easier to sell than peace. Peace is expensive, and not everyone's willing to pay the high price for calm. If you thought Israel would let this attack slide, you've watched too many soap operas with happy endings. Israel, when attacked, doesn't say, let's calm down first. No, their team says, all right, we respond now, and threefold. Hours after the last explosion, Tel Aviv was still smoking, but fighter jets were already appearing in the sky. These weren't toy planes, but the kind that bomb, scout, and send a message. Don't mess with us. Israel immediately targeted missile bases in Syria, in a desert that was really just empty space, but suddenly erupted like fireworks on Eid al-Adha night. Iran stayed calm, but word is they were on full alert. Amid this tense situation, some citizens began asking if this was really a war between nations or a clash of leaders' egos. Imagine, as missiles fly back and forth, the victims aren't generals or officials, but ordinary people. Little kids who just learned the alphabet, mothers cooking meals, teenagers who just graduated high school and haven't had time to fall in love. The saddest part? The world stays silent. The great powers are busy drafting statements. We're concerned, while counting profits from arms sales. Sorry, I got a bit carried away. As Tel Aviv burned, Syria was ablaze, and Iran was preparing to open its second missile warehouse. The world seemed to play chess quietly, without emotion, but watching each other's moves from under the table. The US quickly called an emergency meeting, not for peace, but to decide who to sanction first. The EU made pretty but empty statements. We call on all parties to exercise restraint. Brother, this isn't a parking dispute at a supermarket. It's a real war. You think restraint can solve it? But yeah, the world's a mess. If a small country gets attacked, they call it an internal matter. But if Tel Aviv takes a hit, everyone jumps like there's a 90% off sale. What's even funnier is how mainstream media headlines it. Israel brutally attacked by militants, though it was countries, not wild groups. But that's how it goes. Once a narrative's set, facts are bent to fit it. Sometimes I think people are too good at pretending. Pretending to be neutral, pretending to care, pretending to forget. Days after this chaos, things quieted down. Not because peace arrived, but because everyone was exhausted. All the countries seemed out of breath. Israel went silent. Iran didn't fire more missiles. Syria returned to its wounds. But there was no victory, no trophy, only trauma. A viral video emerged. A small child sitting in the rubble of his home. He says, "I don't understand politics, but I know my house is gone." I went quiet watching it. Know why? Because in war, no country wins. The weapons industry does. The losers are everyone without the strength to say, enough. And we watch, share, argue on social media, then forget. Sometimes I think maybe the world doesn't need peace. It just needs a reason for the next war, because too many people live off conflicts. But do we want to keep being spectators? Or at least realize we're just pawns on a giant chessboard? After these counterstrikes, the world, which had pretended not to hear, finally heated up, like someone silent in a family WhatsApp group who starts typing when the drama kicks off. The US moved in, sending an armada to the Mediterranean. Their vibe was like a senior bodyguard. Relax, we've got this. Though their intentions, were to sell new defense systems. China didn't want to lag behind. They issued a lukewarm statement. We don't take sides. But on the side, they sent drones and reconnaissance planes. Heck, even a sneeze from Iran could be heard in Beijing. Russia joined too, showing up with a calm face, like someone who just woke up but got dragged into a fight. They said, "We support our allies' sovereignty." Brother, this isn't a regional war anymore. It's like a wedding party that suddenly turned into a metal concert. Everyone's there but with different intentions. And the funny thing is, every country says, we want peace, but they all bring missiles too. So what kind of peace is this? One with electric sockets? As the escalation got crazier, everyone started to fear. Will this turn into World War III? Topics were trending everywhere. World War III, pray for the Middle East, end of the world, or what? Influencers started making survival kit content. YouTubers and reactors began crying on camera, though 2 days ago they were unboxing contact lenses. The UN kept meeting, pointing fingers, saying, "We're very concerned." Yeah, sure, worrying's easy. Try being under war sirens. Then you'll know what it's like. But yeah, before everything blew up, something unexpected happened. Iran backed off, Syria went quiet. Israel started calming down too. Why? Because apparently, hackers from Turkey, yes, Turkey, showed up like ninjas and hacked one of the country's satellite communication systems. They say they made the world realize this was all just a game of political elites. Wow. When this info came out, the global community was furious. It was true, brother. Behind all those explosions, missiles, and victims, someone was pulling the strings. Not just because a country wanted to protect its people, but because, as mentioned earlier, there were oil contracts, satellite projects, distractions. Some even say the attack was orchestrated to boost weapons companies' stock prices. I was drained seeing those documents. Sometimes we think our lives are our own, but we might just be statistics living out someone's script. And you know who's always the victim? Yeah, us. Ordinary people who don't know how to fire missiles but can suffer from their debris, who don't sit at negotiation tables but lose our homes. Months later, the world started calming down. Tel Aviv was slowly rebuilding. Iran went back to its economic affairs. Syria, as usual, survived. But who can heal the wounds in people's hearts? Kids who lost their parents, mothers whose homes are rubble, civilians who became collateral damage, though they never chose to join the war. And we all watch, share news, argue in comments, but forget the essence of it all. Sometimes I think, what if peace isn't a task for states but for ordinary people like you and me, who start by not spreading fakes, not provoking, not judging one-sidedly? Because waiting for peace from above is like waiting for free Wi-Fi from a neighbor. Possible, but don't bet on it. So, brothers and sisters, this was our fictional story of when Iran and Syria went wild, and the world could only watch. If this story touched you, or at least made you think, hit like, comment, and share it. Not for me, but so more people realize this world is fun but also cruel. And our job is not to become part of what makes it worse. I'm signing off. See you in the next wild story.